Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, frequent flyers. Today in the lounge, I have a repeat guest, my first ever, with the awesome Cristina Star. She is the founder of Cosmic Citizen Trainings, and she has a degree in physics from Berkeley, 10 years leading transformational programs using Eastern philosophy and practice, and is finishing a master's in space policy. For this timely New Year's Eve theme, we're going to be going into why New Year's resolutions often fail and how we can use the science of change, positive change, to help us reveal and go towards that which we desire most. Christina, it's a pleasure to have you on the show again with me.
Yeah, happy New Year's Eve, Sarah.
Yeah, happy New Year's Eve. I know we had to reschedule this podcast, and I wanted to just highlight that because a lot of people would feel pressure to not change the date or disrupt a schedule. And yet we were both pretty quick to pivot when, unfortunately, you had a stomach bug attack. We're not immune to the winter colds that are going around, and we were able to honor that. And that, I know, is something I used to really struggle with. And so I'm excited for today's topic because I think a lot of people will feel the same.
Absolutely. I definitely have done a lot of work to be able to pivot and adapt quickly without wasting a lot of emotional energy on it. It's just like, what are the facts? I am not able. Am I able to get myself in front of a camera? Possibly. Can I speak eloquently? Absolutely not, So
Yeah,
thank you for also just adapting quickly.
of
It
course.
makes life much easier. And then this is really still very timely. Here we are on New Year's Eve,
Yes.
and this is the day that people, I think, are most prescient about what they are wanting to create in the new year. And so I'm excited to talk about how we can help anybody who's listening out there to have the year that they want, the best year yet, too.
Yes, and it always gets better each year that we uncover more of our true selves and the more that we bring intentional practices to our life. And that's what we're going to do in this podcast today. We're going to help you remove the filters and get a more clear sense of what you actually want. We'll be leading a little exercise. Christina is going to help us to uncover our intentions for next year so that we can hit the ground running and actually make progress without getting frustrated and wanting to give up and throw in the towel. So I'm looking forward to that. Stay tuned. If you're impatient, I highly encourage you not to fast forward to the exercise if you're watching the replay later, but to actually go through and listen so that you'll understand how it works. Because a lot of times our resolutions often fail. And a lot of us think it's because we're doing the wrong thing. But Christina, I know you have studied this from a scientific perspective as well as the Eastern philosophy and practice front. What's the real reason why our New Year's resolutions often fail?
Well, there's a couple reasons, but I want to start first with the foundational teachings that come from both yogic and Buddhist tradition, which have to do with motivation. Whenever we're seeking to enact change in our lives, whether it's like getting into better shape, changing our diet, or we like not having such a strong temper with those that we love, our resolutions run the gamut, and the things that we want to change in our lives also do. But the traditions point us to what the motivations for that are, and say that if your motivation for getting in shape is actually because you hate your body as it is,
Mm,
then that is not the motivation that's going to be able to carry you through, because the foundation of it, the actual energy underneath it, is essentially self-hatred.
mm.
And so that's not going to lead you, the actions you take from that place aren't going to lead you then to like having a body that you love, right? So examining what is the motivation underneath our desires for change is the foundational element where that we start from. Like, oh, okay, I want to create these changes in my life, but why? Really? Like,
Mm.
where's that coming from? And so same tradition shows like what is the aligned motivation? What's the motivation that is going to actually get me there? And essentially, it's that which is aligned with reality and based on a sense of I love myself, things are fine, and I accept things as they are. And it's my nature to desire and to evolve. That like when we embrace the reality that change is something that happens naturally, continually, all the time, then we can start to actually just ride with it. So it's like the improper and misaligned motivation, a lot of times it comes from this sense of we need to change things because they won't change on their own.
Mm.
There's this lack of trust in reality that says that everything's going to stay exactly the same unless I impart my willpower and change it.
Yeah.
And so when we relax that and say, oh, actually change is something that is continually happening, right? Like the waves on the ocean. And I can actually harness that and recognize that I'm going to be evolving and changing no matter what. How do I steer this ship? What do I want to move towards?
Yeah. I think that's a very good point because especially if you're a high achiever, if you're ambitious, and you want to reach the goal and you want to do it quickly, right? Because you know you can do things fast. Um, it's like shaking your fist at the weather, like, oh, it's raining. Is that going to stop the rain? No. But if we wait a while, sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it might be a day or a week, that rain is going to stop, right? It's not going to rain 365 days of the year. So that's a really good point because I think many of us are, myself included, I used to always think that unless I do something right now, nothing is ever going to change. I'll be stuck in the same situation. And while, of course, we do need to put effort towards the things we desire, we can't just sit here and close our eyes and then, things happen. It's important to recognize the reality. And I think a lot of people don't do that, right? They are not really honest with themselves about their desires. And then if they maybe are on a desire, maybe they're not aware of or honest about the actual motivation behind it.
Yeah, so that's why getting to the heart of the motivation is key. And you mentioned something else there, which is like, oh, like high achievers. I think that that's like one of our second points here is like where is it that high achievers especially get tripped up in trying to enact changes in their lives? And so there's a couple of things there. One is that with the core of the motivation that is common, there's usually a place of needing to prove oneself. The achievement is coming from kind of a deeper sense of I'm not good enough as I am. And
Mm.
I need more. I need to be more. I need to be better. I need to accomplish more. There's this kind of insatiable need for achievement. And there's nothing inherently wrong with or right with any benchmark or any achievement, getting more degrees and just creating your startup and going to the moon. All of these things are incredible, and they don't make you a more valuable human being if you are a part of that. And so part of the motivation is when it comes from this place of I'm not enough, it often just tends to create more of that same feeling.
Yeah, it's a bottomless pit. And it's like you're collecting the gold stars, but even when you get the gold star, it doesn't feel good. anymore.
Yeah, it's fleeting. It's a fleeting fix. And so it's important to understand and examine that in inner self. And the reason why I recognize this is this is the process that I certainly went through, realizing, oh, I always choose the hardest thing to do, and I'm trying to do so much with my life, and even pursuing like physics and at Berkeley, like picking top tier schools and everything was a way to try to prove myself
Yeah.
to, the world, to this, like the hunger for accomplishment. So I wanted to highlight that's a common motivation that um, isn't going to lead to what people actually want,
Mm.
right? That fleeting sense of accomplishment, it's fleeting, and I believe that what everybody wants, this is also like a core Buddhist philosophy, is a lasting feeling of satisfaction,
Yeah.
a deep contentment with yourself, to feel comfortable in your own skin authentically as you are, and not be chasing after fleeting feelings of joy.
Yeah. I think you really hit the nail on the head there. We were talking before the show about this willpower and discipline that people who are often high achievers, high performers, they like to move fast, they like to get stuff done. They're used to having this natural tenacity and capacity to do things. And so they often underestimate what's actually required to do something, or they're not clear about the reality of the situation, whether that is a skill set they don't yet possess, or how the science of change actually requires us to build up to and then make progress in these small increments. A lot of us just say, like, here's the thing, I'm going to do the thing. And very often we hear, like, oh, I'm going to be vegan in the new year. Well, if you've been a carnivore your entire life of 4 decades, and then overnight you're now not eating any meat, and you haven't given yourself any preparation, that is not going to last. No matter how long you try to put your willpower into it, there will be a breaking point because you're not setting up a system for success, right? And so that, I think, is something many of us will have nodding heads to on this conversation. I know I've certainly bitten off more than I can chew in the past and gotten really frustrated and then wanted to give up. Is there kind of like an arc you see with people and as they approach change where that usually happens, and then how they can choose differently for 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good point that you bring up there, which is the other side of like the missteps that high achievers often take, which is overestimating the role that willpower has in making change. And it's not all you need. And so when people try to make these huge sudden changes, they say, you know what, I want to go from A to Z. And so I'm going to do it. I'm going to, after drinking all night, I'm going to wake up and do it on January 1st, right? Which is like, somehow this is our tradition. I'm going clean. I'm going vegan. I'm going to go to the gym. It's too much too fast, right? And the analogy that I use for that is saying, oh, I've set this new goal. I'm going to, deadlift 200 pounds. And so then your approach is you go to the gym and you don't even warm up, and you just go and you put 200 pounds on on the barbell. And what happens in that instance is you fail, first of all, like pretty much no matter what, you fail. And like,
Yeah.
unless your goal was set really low, like too low for you, like,
Right.
you failed. And you might injure yourself, right?
Most likely.
And either one of those, you're going to feel demoralized and like, oh, I just set that goal too high, and it's like my personal failing, right? There's a sense of, like you said, like it just demoralizing.
Yeah.
And that does not, that's not a healthy relationship to change, because
Mm.
it's just that the approach was wrong, right?
Right.
That goal is totally attainable. Wrong approach. Um,
Yeah.
like what you did is you thought your willpower was strong enough, you could just go in there and lift that.
Right.
And so the willpower is an interesting thing, because it really is a like it's a capacity,
Hmm.
the same way that muscle strength is a capacity. So I use like fitness analogies a lot in talking about that, because it gives such a clear sense of, we understand that we need to condition ourselves
Yes.
and work incrementally and work with our bodies,
Yeah.
and with recovery cycles in order
Yeah.
to can like change slowly and get towards reaching our goals.
Mm. Yes.
Um, and willpower is essentially our muscle strength. How strong are you? And so, because high achievers tend to have really well developed discipline and willpower, and so things that are difficult for other people are easy for them,
Hmm.
then there's that overestimation of the idea that, oh, that's all it takes. All I have to do is decide that I want to do this, and then I
Right.
just go do it.
Yes.
And you might injure yourself in doing that. Like the idea of going vegan in one day, that's really hard on your body. That's the sort of
Yeah.
thing that's like, that's a rough couple of weeks you just put up for yourself, possibly month. And you can really hurt yourself by doing that. And people don't think, they're just like, it's all I have to do is just change from A to Z. And this is where properties of like understanding biology, but also looking at like the way that nature works, the way the earth works, is quick change is a cataclysm,
Mm.
right? If we have something in nature that changes real like abruptly,
Abruptly.
that's a cataclysm. And
And it's
so,
usually very destructive when that happens.
yeah, very destructive. Takes a while to recover from. Is a rough ride, and and it's so when we do that in our own lives, we're essentially creating that in our own lives.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
that's a big analogy there, because I like what was going through my mind as you were speaking was, like these what we've been experiencing around the globe these last few years with these massive fires, or weird weather in different seasons, right? It's destructive, it's unexpected, we're not prepared. And there's a lot of damage control that comes afterwards, but it's what is the catalyst to help us become aware of the changes that are necessary, right? Before we come to one of those mass events that would be devastating for not only humankind, but many species on Earth. Um, I love that you talked about the discipline and the willpower. And, I think often it's that first step that can take a lot of energy, right? It's one of the hacks, for example, for going to the gym is just getting your clothes on, right? And putting your shoes on, having everything laid out, sleeping in your training clothes, and all you have to do is put on your shoes and get out the door, right? Because it's that initial uh, bit of energy to get momentum that is required. That is hard. But once you're in momentum, then it's easy. Like, oh, well, I'm already out the door. Like, okay, now I can do this. So, what about our making change and the nature of change with momentum, and then the resistance that we might experience as we do certain things? How can we approach this a little bit better?
Understanding the like physics of momentum, I think this is where it really comes in to play in your life, because it's one of these translations of words that is perfect and from physics. So momentum really is the the tendency of a body to stay in the direction that it's going, right? It's to remain in motion. And then inertia is the tendency of a body to oppose that change in motion. And you have to impart energy in order to do that. And so in our own lives, you can think about the analogy of your life being a vehicle, like a car, right? And you're traversing a landscape. And the roads that you're driving, for the most part, are roads that you have mapped out, right? They're grooves that you have been running regularly. Now you want to go somewhere off the map, right? Then that's the change. You say, no, I've got my destination. And taking into account the momentum in your vehicle, this is everything. It's like the people who are in your life, your job scenario, your financial situation, your physical capacity, your emotional resilience. All of these things are part of the momentum that we have in our lives, how rooted we are in the habits already, and the other people and their habits and how those fit in with us, right?
Yeah.
The more enmeshed we are with other people, the more we have to take that momentum into account as well when we're trying to change things. So if we do the regular New Year's resolution thing, then we say, I want to go over there, and it's just like cranking on the steering wheel and going straight off road, and maybe into a tree, because it's the quickest. It's like, that's the line. But if we take momentum into account, you think about, in order to go over there, I want to actually look at the map and see what are some of the obstacles that are in the way. What's going to be the smoothest drive there for me and the other people who are on this ride with me. And first maybe I need to let up the accelerator to slow down to take a turn, and then halfway through the turn, then I can actually press on the accelerator again. I feel like we have this more somatic sense of driving. And so if you can imagine, how can you consider that your life is a vehicle that has a lot of momentum to it, and making that a smooth transition, a smooth ride to your destination? Because ultimately it's about the journey. We've got this idea of where we want to go, but then we get there and we keep going. Like that's another element of this. Is just, it's a continually changing landscape, and we're always moving and changing through it.
I love that analogy with the driving, because it really brought back a somatic memory of going around a turn, and naturally I will lift my foot off of the accelerator as they go around a turn. And depending on how fast I'm going, if you're coming off the freeway and you're going into an off ramp, you're actively applying pressure to the brake, right? To slow down as you come off. You don't just go barreling through with all the momentum you had from the freeway, because usually there's a stop sign or right-hand turn or left-hand turn you have to make. Not even, that's not even circular, it's a square. So you have to stop and really change how you're doing things, and you have to be quite intentional about that. So I really love the analogy of the vehicle we're in, navigating our own life, and treating it like a road trip. I often use flights as an analogy, because when we take off to fly somewhere, we know that at some point we're going to land, and the plane's refueled, and the pilots get rest, and all of these things happen, and then we fly somewhere else. But we don't just stay on this one flight forever, for days and days and days. We're constantly fine tuning and adjusting, and making these small changes that give us over time what seems like a big result, right? I think too many of us we read the news and we see the success stories of all of these amazing people that have done incredible things in the world, and it seems to us like it happened overnight. But what we're not getting is all of the work that went unrecognized, or the things that they did that got them to that place, right? It wasn't just, oh, I'm going to sit here and sketch out some new engineering drawing and design a Tesla overnight, or, the Dragon capsule. No, it took years and groups of people and trial and error and learning from mistakes and not giving up, right? In order to get to those places. And so I
Mhm.
think that's something that we often don't take into account when we're singularly focused on the outcome.
I like that you brought up how so many of these things are done in community, right?
Mm,
That's the other thing is this kind of focus on hyper individualism isn't um, it isn't real, and it's also not helpful. So as we take in a larger picture and try to say, try to identify how change works and can work better in our lives, bringing other people into play is really important. They create
mm,
accountability, they would create a reflection, and then we also work together. So this is part of why I like to I love trainings that involve a lot of people at the same time going through the same things in their own unique and individual ways, because there is a palpable difference between trying to do something on your own and doing it in a community setting. And it's more than just the sum of the parts. Like
yes,
when multiple people are working towards a similar intention, then magic happens. Truly, you know.
absolutely. And it's this ability to learn at different layers also, because when you're in that group setting, there will be some people going through something very similar, if not the same exact thing that you're going through. And there will be others slightly ahead of you, slightly behind you, maybe really far ahead of you, really far behind you. And that will help give you insights and nuance that you won't only get from the instructor, right? You're learning from your peers in that sense too. And then the people who are a bit ahead in some topic or area, they'll help mentor the others, which also deepens their learning, right? So it becomes this really beautiful symbiotic um, journey. And I
Mhm.
mean, everything we do is symbiotic. If you look at nature, right? We were brought into this world. We didn't just appear in the world, right? We were born. And so we relied on our parents to take care of us. And then we go through a cycle of rejecting our parents and going, no, I can do it all on my own. And then realizing, like, hey, that was actually kind of nice when they supported me. And so I feel that there's this almost revolution of moving away from hyper individualism towards community. Maybe not everywhere and all at the same time or at the same speed, but it is more common now that I hear those types of desires from people than 10 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. We've got this positive movement in that direction, and you know, I've been a community organizer most of my life. It's just something that I have gravitated towards. And I would say that there's a fundamental desire that humans have for community that
Mm,
this Western culture is not cultivating. It's fostering the epidemic of loneliness, and so in that there's challenges to creating the kind of community that we want, because part of it has to do with unlearning some of the value system that we have around what it means to be an individual and what it means to have a private life, and what how how the whole thing has to change
yeah,
for us. We can't just add in community and not change anything else about our
right.
operating system and have that work. Um, Community takes showing up. It takes vulnerability.
Mm,
It takes a lot of offering and sharing and giving, and that's how you receive.
yeah,
That's the more you give, the more you receive. And I feel like that to a certain extent, that's why I love service so much and I love creating community, is I receive so much from
absolutely.
the just the gifts of being able to be with people. And
Yeah.
it's like another thing, the reason why I kind of like honed in on that is not a tangent into like individualism versus community. It's that when we're trying to impart change in our personal lives, we need to take into consideration the people who are around us.
Yes.
And because that they are a part of the inertia of our lives, and they're a meaningful part of like what we want, right? So
Yes.
like there are ways in which the people who are closest to us can be obstacles to the change that we want, and they can be our greatest allies also.
Absolutely. And in informing people of the changes that you are intending to make or that you are seeking out, as well as including them in on it, is going to help set you up for success rather than, oh, I've made a decision that I'm going to eat super clean and healthy, but my family still wants to eat a different way. And, you don't just go throw everything out in the pantry and demand that everybody follows your way, because
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not this is the way. It's not the Mandalorian, as fun as that is to say. Um, so bringing in things slowly and then making it a group effort, right? I mean, all of those things you just listed about the benefits of community and what they're good for, that's leadership, right? Being able to grow others and to give, and then and then what do you receive from them? You receive loyalty, you receive effort, you receive all of these things. It's the term community and leadership there for me as you were speaking was synonymous, because
Mm-hmm.
that is how we are wired as people, and the best leaders know how to be in community with the people that they're leading, and at the same time be accountable for the decisions and responsible for the direction that they're taking everybody, right? And there will be other times when the other people in your community will be leading, right? For different things. And that's the most useful way of all of our energy, all of the momentum we each carry, so that if I'm experiencing inertia in a certain area, then you can take over, Christina, because your inertia in that area is less. And so that can help give some more momentum, and help pull me through that, rather than I'm trying to use all my willpower and discipline to force my way through.
Yeah, force your way through on your own.
Yeah. I still remember one time, I forget who it was I was working with, and she said, "Sarah, all these things you've done, it's amazing. You've been busting down the door and like, here I am and doing these amazing things." She's like, "But did you realize that the door wasn't even locked?" I was like, mind blown. Like, "Oh, you mean I could have just like saved some energy and just turned the knob? I didn't have to be like Spartan kick it down and hurt myself in the process and need a week's worth of rest." And I think that's often when we're going too fast, we don't realize that. When we slow down, we can check before we take the action and make sure that it's in alignment, that it's from the right motivation, and then we can apply things like willpower and discipline appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, slow is fast, right? That's the NASA saying that's very famous. Slow is fast.
Yeah.
Um, and and I like with New Year's resolutions and such. I don't really set resolutions. For me, the entire month of January is a month of setting a course,
Mm.
right? So I get really clear on my motivations, the vision of what this year is going to like feels like it's going to become. And then there's this sense of, I'm not sure if we lost you there for a minute. I know I did. But then I can set the course and be really strategic and use all of my project management tools and all of my understanding of the nature of change. And then I've got a clear sense of where I am and where I want to go. I can chart my course there. And then begin to enact the same way that I would like any kind of fitness regimen, slowly, like my steady, like now I get myself there, and I take into account how much actual willpower I have, so that I can grow that the same way that I grow the muscles in my life. And that the change cannot be like a cataclysm in my life and my family's life. It
Yeah.
can be something that is smooth and easy. And that is not a waste of energy. You mentioned that, and that was a big key. I think that what drove me into the self-development work, and especially yogic practices, was the focus on efficiency and energy, because I had just, wasted so much of it. I think that that's one of the biggest things, is that, like, wasting emotional energy and wasting effort.
Yeah.
So it's in so much excess. Just like the giant, it's like making these like giant motions for like moving something a centimeter. You really and the practices and the awareness that you have to bring to why we do that, and then how to recondition our system so that you're actually, essentially low drama, you know, okay with not having this like flamboyant relationship to your life, and bringing it in and having like a tight energy and a clear sense of what's the easiest way. I think that that's another thing, is there's a deeper, almost like addiction to the drama of our
Yeah,
lives, you
absolutely. I
know,
was just thinking that.
being the main character in a really interesting story,
Yeah.
a story,
Overcoming
about an
obstacles.
astronaut, a story about like, here I have, accomplished beyond, after struggling through adversity, and like my relationships are like up and down and intense, and there's this desire for drama because it's interesting.
Yeah.
And if what you really want at your core is to have like contentment, and we talked about before, contentment, satisfaction, a smooth ride of life, and the ability to have a really positive impact, that's a much mellower
Yes.
existence. You give up the big swings,
Yeah.
and you work on just being contained and doing kind of the minimum effort for maximum results.
Yeah. There was an analogy used in a keynote speech I was watching recently by the first female Thunderbird pilot, Fifi Malakowski, and she was talking about flying in a very tight formation where they're like inches away, wingtip to wingtip, right? And then the forces that are on the aircraft. And the first time she did that, they get the weather briefing, they're told where turbulence will likely be, but still, of course, you don't know exactly when it's going to hit, right? And that's a great metaphor for our life. We know that there will be turbulence, and if we are properly applying our motivation and our awareness and our understanding and charting this path for ourselves, we can understand where the inertia might be, what are the possible friction points, but we still don't know exactly when it's going to happen or what form it will take. And so her natural response was to grip tighter and it try to exert more control. And when she got down on the ground, her teammates told her what she actually needs to do is release the control and ride through that turbulence. And, there's a lot more technicality that can be put into that. But essentially, the more we try to force things as we experience those pockets of turbulence, the less fun it's going to be. And the more likelihood of actually spinning out of control we will have, because we are not riding that wave. We are not allowing the momentum to take us. And then we're just making these slight adjustments instead of trying to, like, I'm going to go this way really, really fast in the blink of an eye and just completely add more inertia and more resistance to the situation. So um, I think that, one of the things that is really important right now for people to take away is the importance of those small habits that we spoke about the other day in preparing for this podcast. That the practice of the habit that you are building, because it's a practice for a reason.
Yeah, it's a capacity that is built day by day. by practicing. And, you touched on something that's important there, which is, um, well, the sense of gradualism,
Mhm.
right? That we build incrementally on these capacities. But also that there are unexpected big like events that take place, right?
Yeah.
And so this is getting like in evolutionary biology, there is the theory that was put forth in the 70s called punctuated equilibrium, and it's even since been like expanded into theories on economics and social politics and everything. And that is the idea that like gradualism isn't really the way that life changes. Like there are these small incremental changes, but there are periods of intense rapid change,
Yes.
and then like equilibrium is like found, like then you equilibrate and
Yes.
into a more like into a stasis that is still like has the regularity of change, and then there's another big change. So in like wait, isn't that just kind of contradicting everything that we were talking about, right, with making these incremental changes? No, because what we do is we put in effort in a concerted way in a short amount of time that's contained, right? And so the beginning, I like in the beginning of the year, there's a concerted effort, and putting a deadline on that where it's I will put in this intense concerted effort for 40 days, for instance,
Yeah.
which is a common one that's used in many traditions. Um, that is that gives you something that is well contained for rapid change, and you know that you can orient around that. This is also something like many traditions we use the end date as something that actually, when you cap the whole container, creates a much greater capacity to make those changes. Then you relax the effort and you see like what actually stuck. Then you got to see the effort that I put into making new grooves and making new habits. What's the default state now when I relax those efforts
Mhm.
and um, incorporate what I learned from that intense period? Where's the equilibrium fall? So what
Mm.
we're seeking to do is actually change our default state
Yes.
so that we're not in a state of continual effort, right? We're in a state of effort, relaxation, effort, relaxation, right?
Yeah.
It's
Tension and release, tension and release. I mean,
this is the way
that's
that nature
life.
works.
Yeah.
So this is how we can learn from nature. So on large scale life, punctuated equilibrium, but then also just with our breath, right?
Mm.
And with any kind of actual effort or movement or health, the way our bodies work, you put in the effort, you relax the effort,
Yeah.
and then you see how your default has shifted. um, and I mentioned in there this period of 40 days,
Mhm.
and that's because I feel like we make a personal change and a certain shift, and there's the internal conditioning that needs to take root,
Yes.
where we have actually created new pathways, blazed them, and made them deep enough so that they can stick. But also, everything in our life has to change around that.
Yes.
Something that's often not taken into consideration that I think we've touched on a few times there. Yeah, your family, that matters.
Yeah.
Your work, that matters. But when there are 24 hours in a day, if you add something or you take something away, everything else like has to find a new balance and
Right.
to fill the same container of 24 hours.
Yeah. The knock-on effect. Sometimes we don't think about stages 2, 3, and 4 of the change that we're seeking. And that's why it's really important to, as you mentioned before, have the why really strong. Like, why is this the thing that you desire in your life? And what will that change bring you? So that what? Because if that's not clear enough, then when those obstacles start to come up or when those knock on effects start to take place, you'll feel blindsided or you'll feel like well, this is not actually what I want. And sometimes we have to go through the process to realize that, because we weren't able to accurately forecast what those knock-on effects might be.
Yeah, there's as you were speaking, I was thinking about how like this high performance morning routine that
Yeah.
people are often going through, that it can just get longer and longer.
Oh my
You
gosh.
know, be like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get up at 3 a.m. and I hit the gym and I do my meditation, and then I drink my green drink, and then I've got my cold shower, and then I've got like there's
Sauna and then yeah.
you got your 4-hour morning routine, which is great, but there's something that can become kind of you can't do everything. That's
Right.
the main thing, is that like, you know, for me, I have to decide in the morning, do I like get up and use the momentum that I have to go and do fitness, like, or do I sit down and I journal my dreams? Is like I'm also like that's a practice of mine, is lucid dreaming and utilizing the power of my dreams, and but also fitness is like that's I feel very called to that, and the way that my body works is it's like if I gotta do it first thing in the morning. So if I'm doing that, then I'm not doing this,
Right.
right? You have to choose. They're both healthy, awesome things to do, you
Right.
know, but it's like, what do I want to focus on each time? You know, what do
Yes.
I want to focus on right now? Like, how does that matter to me right now? What's important now? Um, yeah. And that has a lot to do with like, what time of year is it? And what are the goals that I have that I've set out? Is conditionality. And the reason why I bring that up partly is that people have this idea that you just have to like make your list of things and then like stick to it. And
Yeah.
that there's this conclusion of the perfect lifestyle, and it's just your personal failing that you're not living that
Right.
already, right?
Right.
And that the goal of a New Year's resolution is like you've set your perfect lifestyle and then you do it, and once you've accomplished it, then like yay, like all
Right.
your then you're perfect.
There's no such thing.
Then you're Mark Wahlberg,
And
right?
yeah. Marky Mark. Oh man. Um, yeah, no, I have a personal friend who is so stuck in his very healthy habits and his personal routine that it's actually become cumbersome to ever do anything with him. And it's alienated friendships. It's impacted him in maybe other ways that I'm not even sure he is fully aware of at this moment in time. And, we go through cycles and phases. And like, I know we talked about, I've got this habit card from James Clear, and it's like the Seinfeldian method. And you can see there's some gaps, but it's very satisfying for me to like put the little X there and be like, okay, I did my thing. And there's a lot of little things here, because right now I am conditioning myself, I am programming myself to make these my routine, my habit. And I started to notice that I had it on my wall, but when I would travel, which I do quite a bit for work, I would forget certain things. Some of the newer habits that were not fully deep enough, I would forget. And then the next morning, be like, oh, I didn't meditate last night, or oh, I forgot to read, and all of those things. So this has been such a great way to just bring my awareness and attention to my intention. And then if I sit here and go, oh, you know what, I've kind of skipped that, new thing I'm trying to do a lot. Maybe I don't really like it as much as I think I would, or maybe I'm not getting the benefit I thought I would by making this a daily practice. And then I'll reevaluate and determine, do I keep this as part of the daily routine, or is this more of a on the weekend type of thing that I do? That reflection is important, not just to do on December 31st every year.
Yes.
Whatever your intention is for 2024, check in with yourself every week. What's working well, what could be improved? Do you need to pivot at all? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But if you do that regularly, you don't have to have the wild swings, right? You can be more intentional and slow and smooth with that change.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's regular reflection is an important part of building the capacity to change. And I wanted to circle back, when we were talking about punctuated equilibrium, and you mentioned kind of like the bigger external changes that can happen. One of the bullet points we have on this talk was like, why is it really important for leaders to cultivate this capacity to
Yeah.
change and to harness the power of change. Um, and what I see right now is a rapidly changing world. We are on course for the next 10 years to be to see as much technological advancement as the last 50,
That's
right?
crazy. Yeah.
And then we're also in this state of like complete ecological collapse. You also mentioned, like, alluded to mass extinction, and we are in the sixth mass extinction. This is real. This is happening. This is accelerating. It's very challenging for the human mind to do anything other than a linear extrapolation, and to just we're designed for linear extrapolations, but that's not the way that the world is working. It's not the way society is working. And so being able to be adaptable and respond in a powerful way to quick change is a capacity that our leaders need to have.
Absolutely.
That there's Because what it means to be a leader is to not only be able to be totally able to take care of yourself, but to take care of other people too. And to
Yes.
be able to have a clear, sober mind and see what needs to be done and act
Mm,
without needing to like cut yourself off from your emotions, and without becoming paralyzed by the shock of change, right? Other
absolutely.
people around you are in panic, and it's your job to uh, be able to assess and respond and serve in these moments. And the world is like, I'm a climate scientist at the core. And so I sometimes feel like I sound like a conspiracy theorist when I talk about the change that we are going to see in the next few years. This
Yeah.
idea of climate change being something that's in the far future, it's over. All that
Yeah.
wiggle room we had is gone.
Yeah.
The 2023, we hit that 1.5 degrees above average, and we also had the warmest year on history. We have not had this much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in over 3 million years, and the rate of change of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has not been this strong since for 500 million years, which is like,
Yeah.
about the history of complex life on the planet,
Yes.
right? This is all real. This is the science that is. And my I've studied mass extinctions in depth. That's one of the passions that I had since I was a kid. I was one of those kids that never grew out of loving dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And that's a part, like, recognizing and learning about how change really happens on this planet, how life adapts to that change, and then also as human beings, what that means and what our capacities are. And then we practice changing. We practice
Yes.
engaging with adaptability, because it's a capacity that, as you practice, by just saying, here's where we are. Here's my sober look at where I am. Here's where I want to be. And now I'm going to engage in strategically getting there step by step in a way that is like as quick as possible, but while being smooth.
Mm,
Right? This is the capacity that we build by practicing it, and that's why it's like I offer the programs that I offer, is to help people to build that capacity so that when the unexpected happens, you're already strong enough to adapt, and that the leaders that we have are not paralyzed by the changes that are coming.
absolutely. And when we use the term leaders, it's not just leaders of organizations. It's everyone. If you're a parent, if you're a sibling, If you have a pet, right? You need to lead yourself, right? You mentioned that we need to be able to lead ourselves and take care of ourselves first, and then we can serve and lead others. And so this is really a conversation for everybody. This is not just about the leaders of companies and of organizations and communities. It's about all of us. And so um, this is definitely a time that we need to make this a priority. This is no longer a nice to have. Oh, when I get time, I'm going to do some personal development. Like, we are at a critical turning point, and there is actually a show on Netflix that goes into the mass extinctions events that we have had, the 5 mass extinction events. With the use of CGI, they make it visual, so it's actually very engaging and very stimulating. It's narrated by Morgan Freeman.
Life
And
on planet Earth.
yes, it's fantastic. I'll put the link as well on on the show notes so that people can go and watch it. But
Yeah, very
really,
well done.
yes. And when I was watching it, I even said to my mother, I said, I've read about this in articles, in books, in courses, but with visualizing and seeing what had happened during the 5 mass extinction events through the technology that we now have, it had a shift in my brain because we are visual creatures,
Mhm.
and it allowed me to see also that rapid change that you spoke about. That's the cataclysm for change, and how quickly, I mean, they found mammoths with half digested food in their bellies, frozen, right? So that was a very quick event. And so change can come very quickly. And really, all of these practices are about building the capacity to endure that change, to process it quickly, and then be able to move decisively and calmly to the next stage of life, whatever that may look like, right? So I'm really excited to have your new programs coming out. You've Cosmic Citizen Trainings is the latest venture, but you've been training people for over a decade, as we mentioned at the beginning. Can you tell me a little bit more about, you know, what superpower is driving this program? I know we had you on the show recently, so we've dove into all those questions. But what is the superpower here that is really helping you bring people through this path?
Mhm. Right. The program that I have that I'm launching for the new year is called Mission Evolution 2024. And it stemmed from me reflecting on, like, what do I really have to offer? Like, what are the superpowers that I have to offer that seem to be something that is in demand, right? It's in need, it's not out there as much. And that is the capacity to change and my adaptability and my responsiveness that through the couple of decades of yogic practice and also like healing, right? It was just like I talk about transformation. Transformation is just another word for change.
Mm,
So is development. So is evolution. And so over the many years that I've worked on myself, and then the decade that I worked with other people through the process of change, got this. I decided to distill that into an 8-week program to get people into that concentrated period of time where we can really focus on like setting out this arc of change. And then I can impart like the science and the Eastern practices and like high performance lifestyle, which involves creating a lot of energy efficiency in our lives,
mm,
clearing out the clutter, and pulling up the friction, and letting go of the dead weights so that we can actually move towards our goals, creating a community around that of like peer leaders that can continue to support each other in their goals, and yeah, creating this arc of then like, all right, now how do we go through and each week do like add another layer and
yeah.
another layer and another layer, and to like seem to slowly but actually very rapidly create change in our lives while building the capacity for adaptability and
Mm,
resilience and understanding what you need to do in order to continue to build that, and to keep that momentum going throughout the year. So that's the superpower I'm trying to impart, in 2024. And it's the first time I've offered this specific course, because I did see like this is something that is needed right now more than ever. And I just really want to create help people be able to respond to the changes that are coming, instead of reacting.
I love that. And I also appreciate that you mentioned before that while this is your superpower, it was a learned superpower. And so this is something that we can all learn and develop. It is not you're born with it or you're not, right? This is something that we can all grow. And so that's why I'm really excited that one, you created it, two, to be on your team to help support it. So I will share the link again. It was up on the screen a moment ago. There it is. Cosmiccitizen.training/me24. You can learn all about Mission Evolution 2024, where we will slow down to then accelerate our potential towards our life mission, which which is why we chose that Stephen Covey quote. Life is not your career, it's a mission. And when we treat it that way, we start to interact with the people around us differently. We make different choices because we have a different perspective, and that's what this is doing. So I'm really excited that you brought this together.
Yeah, me too. It feels wonderful, and I want to. I think we can kind of turn our attention now to what you're talking about with your intention for the year, right? We made a
Yeah,
promise that we're going to help guide people through a quick exercise so that they can start to set their compass in the right direction, right? Circling all the way back around to misaligned motivation, and to say, okay, well, how do I find my aligned motivation? So would you like to do that exercise right now?
yes, absolutely. Let's do that, and I'll make a note for people to be able to come back at the right timestamp and find this exercise.
Great. Yeah. So this is pretty simple. Unless you're driving, maybe you can just go ahead and find your seat and close your eyes briefly, and take a couple of deep breaths, which is just bringing you into the moment, like letting go of everything that we just talked about, and anything else that you might be multitasking, and coming into the moment, into your body, taking another deep breath. And as you take that second deep breath, you are relaxing. Third deep breath, you find yourself in your heart, getting in touch with that feeling of who you are that has always been there. The sense of who you are that has always been there. Who is looking out of your eyes through your whole life? Of that, all the things that have changed in your body, in your psyche, in your life as you've grown, there's something, a quality that is the same. And that sense, a wordless being that is you at your core, it has a vision for your best year to come. So just get a sense and open and allow as I ask the question, what is it that you want this year? Who do you want to be? What is your experience of life? From an open place, maybe you just have feeling, or you get a vision. Occasionally, this can come in words. If you can, just try to get that sense and attune it to like a single word or phrase. Now, if you feel, go ahead and take another deep breath. And you can release that. Open your eyes. So hopefully you got a sense of a vision or a feeling of yourself operating at what feels like a really wonderful place, right? Usually there's something that feels really, and then there's also like a unique quality to it, right? And
Mm.
sometimes you need to do this exercise a few times to be able to, get a word or get that phrase and distill it. And this is a practice that I suggest people do regularly, right? Dropping into your sense of self and then asking yourself what you want. And that gives you an intention that you set as your compass. So your compass isn't something that and your intention isn't something that you decide, it's something you discover.
I love that. It's really it's a discovery and revealing process rather than a creation process.
Absolutely. And there's something that relieves the responsibility a little bit and the burden of like figuring it out. You
Yeah.
don't have to figure it out. You actually just have to get quiet, listen, and ask the right questions.
Just gonna type that out for everybody as well. Dropping into that sense of self and asking yourself what you want. I mean, this is why meditation is so powerful. This is why creating space between meetings, having white space in your calendar, having a day of rest or periods of rest in your days in your week allows you to come back to that truest sense of who you are and what you desire. Um, and I was just rereading what I wrote about my intention for 2024 and doing your exercise. It was like the same words came up, and it was more of a visual experience than when I just allowed the words to come to me in meditation yesterday. But it's exactly the same word. I actually started writing them down because I was like, "Ooh, those are good words." And then I looked at what I wrote. I was like, "Oh, it's the same. Perfect."
Yeah, I would love to hear
Um,
your words.
yeah. So my word this year is in 2024 is timelessness.
Mm.
Um, Bringing more spacious presence to the moment of now. And when you think about it, now is always changing because, we're constantly in the moment of now, but the now of now is different than the now of before. So it's, really about being present and playful. What creates timelessness? When do you lose track of time? When you're playing, when you're having a good time, when you're fully experiencing something, right? Then time doesn't have any meaning anymore. And so that's the focus for my 2024. And what I had written down just now was spacious, playful, full vibrance, and rich.
Mhm.
And so it was very much in line with what I had written in my post yesterday, which we're talking about before we went live. And it feels, I got this sense of when you guided us through, I was like, there was, 8-year-old Sarah with this curly mop of hair, kind of like peeking out of the adult Sarah body, going like, "Ooh, what are we gonna do?" And so that was quite playful in itself with that
Mhm.
visualization you guided us through.
Mhm. I love that. I love your words. First of all, it's so great to share them, and the the fact that you've distilled it down to timelessness, but then you unpack that for us because
Mm.
these words, it's just a placeholder. It's a signifier for what's actually this multi-dimensional, incredibly nuanced feeling. Like that's the best word we can actually say. It's a feeling. It's
Yeah.
definitely not a concept, right? It's like a
Right.
thing to embody, a full experience. And then a word is just a signifier. It's a placeholder. It's the thing that we can like touch it.
Yes.
Like we can find a way to touch that feeling again. We create that connection to that feeling. So my word was offering.
Mm.
And I actually hadn't done this. I haven't done this, today, but I haven't done this specifically for 2024. So I'm doing it alongside everybody else. And I saw myself just like in my like glowing, radiant, like empowered, full, authentic beingness, sharing that light,
Yeah.
like offering it, just like
Beautiful.
giving and offering. And that's definitely how I feel about this year in Cosmic Citizen trainings, is just the culmination of my decade in science and my decade of offering transformational programs and bringing those together for like high achievers and for like space and science technology professionals to really cultivate and help people up level their capacity, because the times they are a changing,
They
and
are.
it's time to learn how to surf and ride the waves of change.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so excited. I learned how to actually surf a wave last December, and it was amazing how actually going through that process helped me see that why that's such a perfect metaphor for the things we go through in life. So I'm very excited to ride the cosmic wave with you starting very soon with the mission evolution. So for everyone watching, please go and check it out if this has been helpful. If you found this calling and of interest to deepen your own practice and go to the next level, we are here to support you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sarah. This has been wonderful, and wishing everybody a happy new year, and that 2024 can be your best year yet.
Amen. Aho. All right. Thank you so much, Christina. It's been such a pleasure to have you on again today. For everyone who would like to connect, Christina is on all of the socials. And so wherever you're watching this, you can connect on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. And until then, enjoy your New Year's Eve, and we'll see you on the other side.